Hi, and welcome to RBP on JSB. I'm violinist Rachel Barton Pine, and today we're going to be talking about the fourth movement of Bach's Partita No. 2 in D minor, the Giga. By the way, if you want to listen to some thoughts about general issues that pertain to all of the Bach sonatas and partitas, please be sure to watch the overview episode. So, this is a jig, a dance that not only was still being danced in 1720 in various forms all over Europe, but is still danced by many cultures today. And so we have to make sure that we're getting jiggy with it, right? We don't want it to sound like it's not a jig, because it is a jig. So therefore, hooking the opening is going to cause the dancers to keep their feet on the ground, and that's not what you want. Now, granted, this wouldn't have been written to accompany dancing. This was not a utilitarian jig. This was an instrumental concert jig, but nonetheless, it's still supposed to evoke the feel of the dance, and we want the dancers to get their feet up off the floor. So doing a hook is not really going to make that happen. Gotta do that. And actually, you might say, well, that's a little awkward and weird. Well, we do that in the gigue, the last movement of the E major partita. Right? Nobody hooks that, because then you'd be backwards on your 16th. Some people hook, or whatever romantic era kind of thing you're doing there. But anyway, the fact that you do make the first beat separate. Same thing here. All right, it's just more cheerful. And come on, jigs are always cheerful. There's no such thing as a sad or serioso jig. So to get used to it, it's basically quarter, eighth, quarter, eighth. We could do a scale with that bowing pattern to get used to it. Started squeaking. I need to get some rosin off here. All right, so then what about measure 21? The first measure of the second half is missing a slur. So for years and years, actually almost my entire life till now, I always put that slur in. But recently I thought, well, you know what? It's a little bit different pattern of notes than the fourth beat of measure 1, because here we have a triad going up, three scale notes going up, and then a little scale going down, and then a triad going down. Here we have triad going up, scale going up, scale going down, and then a triad going up. So there's a difference. So I thought, the fact that there's a difference in beat 4 note-wise, maybe there should be a difference bowing-wise, and maybe Bach didn't make a mistake after all. But you can't do it as it comes, because then you're backwards on your 16ths. So I actually do down, up, up. Now, who knows? Maybe if I asked Bach, he would say, you're overthinking things. I just forgot a slur. Come on, just do a slur. But somehow, I like the down, up, up. Maybe just because it's new and different for me. I don't know. But it kind of makes it rum, bum, 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 right there in that moment. And I don't know, just something to consider. I mean, I'm not going to urge you to do it. The slur is the much more obvious option, but, you know, we should always think about all the possible options before making our decision. What about measure 38 and measure 17 for that matter? So let's actually talk about measure 17 first, because starting in measure 18, there's a pattern of 3 notes slurred, 3 notes separate that goes on and on. And so it seems like maybe he should have started it 1 beat earlier. Because actually, the last beat of measure 17 is the exact same notes as the last beat of measure 18. So it does seem like he left one off. But you could also say, well, maybe he didn't want to start it quite yet. Hard to know. I find it to be interesting interesting to make it separate, but maybe I only think it's interesting because it's something different than what I've been used to all these years. So it's hard to know if I'm being objective about it. But again, don't just automatically add that slur. Consider the possibility of not slurring and see what you think. Same thing with 38, except it's the opposite issue. We've had this 3-note slur thing going on since the middle of 36. And then suddenly no slur. And that might also have meaning because it's kind of building to this this final cadence, right? So as it's building, maybe he wanted that last beat to be more emphatic. It does work. Of course, the slur works too. Keeps it a bit lighter, which is certainly valid. So make your own decision, and you could do it one. Just because you choose not to slur in 17 doesn't mean that you can't decide to slur in 38 and vice versa. You don't have to do both slurs or both not slurs. And you can certainly feel differently about it on different days or different weeks or different years. There's some bass notes going on starting in measure 10 that you should be aware of, kind of thinking of them as, notes that are more sustained than they are in real life. So this E, continuing in your mind all the way to the F, half bar bass notes. E, F, B, A, B, F, etc. And same kind of thing going on in measure 25. Then we have these wonderful Bach echoes, of course, and always good to maybe vary your bow stroke along with your volume. A little bit off-ish, then maybe more on-ish. I don't think there's any of this movement that I would do totally gooey on the string, like a totally legato, but definitely different amounts of bubble or bounce or brush. You can have different shadings of bow stroke to give it some variety. Of course, you've got your other echo in measure 26. And one could assume that Bach matches the return to the forte in 27 that he did at 12, but maybe not, something else to experiment with. I tend to think that perhaps he did because the notes kind of go down. It's really the exact same music except a fifth different key-wise. So measure 12, which has a printed forte, which you really must do because Bach did say so. Going down in pitch, lower, lower. And then eventually you rise back up later. Same thing here. Right. Okay, but anyway, you can experiment with dynamics. Make sure that you also pay attention to half bars, even when there aren't bass notes guiding you about it. Measure 3 is really shaped by the half bar. It's just good, even in a piece that's in 4, to not get too beaty about it. To have 1, 2, 3, 4. It just gives it more space and more, kind of feel of impulse than having 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not going to help the dancers get that lift. So measure 3. Let's see, that's a weird place to start. I'll start at the beginning of the bar. Things aren't always by half bars, but often they are. Measure 23. Still in half bars, etc. Measure 33. Here we do kind of a bass pattern. Now beat by beat by beat. So it does change up. So measure 33 with all the notes. So just making sure that everything has lift and that you think about where the emphases are going to be, whether it's a shaping by the half bar or by the beat, whether the notes are leading down, leading up. And there are 3 cadences that you should be aware of within the body of the halves. First one is pretty shortly after the beginning in measure 5. You can just do a little wiggle within the timing once you reach it. Just a moment to kind of enjoy that resolution and then carry on. That you don't have to rush right past it, but and then there's almost 1 in 22, but not really. I just feel like it's only been less than 2 bars since the start of the second half, so that can't really be a cadence, but it sort of almost feels like one. So just do something with it, but maybe not a lot. There's definitely a big one in the middle of 30, and pay attention to that because it's a great way to have, kind of just some space in the middle of all these running 16ths. So big G minor moment. It almost sounds like it's going to major, but then it doesn't really. So rather than then you've just lost this opportunity to do something interesting. And both halves have tags. So there's really the real ending in the middle of 19 and the first note of 40. But then you have, and then the same thing in 40. So making sure that it's like this is the real cadence, and then these are the extra notes, as opposed to, you wouldn't want to play it as if the last note of each half is the real ending. Then, because that's not quite how the music is built. Almost a little cadenza-y moment over there. There's kind of a Hemiola moment in the last half of 39 where you can kind of tell that Bach is showing you that there is a Hemiola, because in the fourth beat of the bar, he puts a 3-note slur not over notes 1, 2, and 3, but over notes 3, 4, and 5. Only time in the movement he does that. And so therefore, in fact, that 3-note slur is on the beginning of a beat, but it's on the beginning of a 2/8 note beat within the context of this 3/4 note triplet. So the last half of the measure, instead of being 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, is 1, 2, 3. So I'll show you what I mean. Instead of, it's so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So it's really kind of fun to bring that out. Oh, what am I doing? And you can hear that kind of a bit of a bass line in measure 39 too. So those are some of my thoughts about the D minor Giga. I'm violinist Rachel Barton Pine, and thank you for watching RBP on JSB.